it's military and in the military, so he said that he is so used to giving orders and taking orders. So in the context of international relations and the political setup, he said how he will have to bow down to a lot of international pressures and he'll take orders internationally as well, and how eventually he will also give the orders, and for that he'll have to use the gun and keep the Sri Lankan public under control with the military government. So that sort of logic is what he brought, and then he was talking about how destabilizing the whole effect can be on the economy, and how, if that is the case, how it is very difficult for the business community or any community flourish with business and development. He was touching on international experiences with respect to that. That was the gist of the arguments he made in the second half of the round table. Now, Mr. Tissa De Silva, we know that you are a person who travels to many parts of the world, from Southeast Asia and many parts of Asia, and you've been in Australia for 30 years as well. And you've seen how governments functions, and they have different ideologies. And looking at the political setup right now, what are the inferences and observations mostly you can make with respect to the political situation right now, and what are the lessons we can learn also?
One of the as you said, my experience in Australia, I have worked under various prime ministers and for the Australian Public Service during my period there as a principal structural engineer. And what the people talk about is, but I would like to say one of the best prime ministers of Australia has been John Curtin. He was an engine driver. It is not necessary that one should be a university graduate, a so-called professional, to be the prime minister. As someone said, any simple farmer can be brought in and put in on the job. Why you talk about a farmer or someone like that is, he knows the people very well. And Mahinda is a person who he's taking orders from the people. It's the people who give the orders, people who are elected. Fonseca has never been used to getting orders from a community or a crowd. And he's disposing of that orders, which he's getting from the people, for the benefit of the people. That is the true democracy. And that is what Abraham Lincoln was. That is how democracy functions. Not taking orders from so-called technocrats or foreign interests and then dishing out with a gun to the bottom people. So while saying that, I must add, Fonseca hasn't demonstrated that he can do that part of the work, that he work with a team of ordinary people.
But Mr. De Silva, that is exactly what Mr. Fonseca promises. Like among the list of promises he has made, he talks about restoring democracy, re-establish democracy. So also, does that mean that we've lost democracy before? And comments?
No, that itself demonstrates to me that his democracy was confined to a few elements within the society. Now, when we got independence, I would have been about 8 years old, we just shifted the power from the British side to the local side. That is not independence. The SWRD brought in 1956 large Govi teachers and the Mahatyas into the field. That was the birth of our democracy to a certain extent. And Premadasa and Mahinda consolidated it very much better to the actual people. It is not, democracy is not confined to the elite in the urban environment. Now, in my travels, as you say, I have recently traveled from Australia through Bali, right up to Singapore, and then Thailand and Malaysia. And I have seen what lot of Sri Lankans haven't seen. That is, many of our Sri Lankans visit the major capitals and say, look, there are freeways in Bangkok, there are freeways in this part of the society, but that is not what is development. You go to the villages of Bali or to the when you travel through Indonesia, people don't have a means of transport even. They still go in small vans like what we used to go to the school those days from Kohuwal area, hanging on to buses with open bodies just after the war type of logic. That is how they are transport. So the governments doesn't cater for the ordinary people. They are catering for a few people with the Western interest wants to be used as tools to govern the vast majority of the people, so that they could exploit the resources of Indonesia. They are using the people as coolies with a few elite who are getting the benefit of that society. And this is the main reason. If it is democracy, all the people of the society should get the benefits. Now you go to a village, they are all getting benefits from various their roads are being done, their water is being provided, their electricity is being provided, so they have information. Every villager carries a mobile phone. Now I see the fishermen carrying a mobile phone. They know what is going to happen. So that is democracy. It's for all, not for a one group. If you confine the democracy only to a few elite in a Colombo suburb or to a Galle suburb, then what will happen? We will have an unstable government. And that instability itself will kill the elite of that society. So the elite should understand that if they want power, it's a power sharing with the villagers which will bring them forward, which Fonseca will never do.
Why do you say never do?
He will never hand over that power because of the influence of the economic influence of the United National Party under Ranil, where I had the opportunity during that period of visiting the head of the IMF with another friend of mine, Percy Vikramasekara. We visited and met Prime Minister Carter, the head of the IMF here. And then the reason why we met him was, he was telling us, don't grow paddy, grow zucchinis. United States can grow paddy or rice and sell rice to Asia, and Australia can sell rice to Asia. Why should you grow? You grow zucchinis and export it to Europe. And that is how the economy was being gradually changed. But now we see that rice, there is a big competition for rice lands down south. People are taking other people's lands even, and if they are uncultivated, they want to grow rice because they are getting money out of it. And soon we will see graduates and others going into paddy cultivation. Like what you see in Australia, farmers' children come back after the university degrees to do the cultivation back in the home. Because that is what is to a certain extent democracy.
Right, and Mr. De Silva, we just have a time for like one more question. So I would like to ask you, now there is a lot of accusations actually now from the both sides about corruption and nepotism. So what is your take on it? Especially, can you relate some of the allegations to what you see in the international political context as well, because you have traveled?
If you talk about corruption and nepotism in Sri Lanka, and compare to what is the corruption and nepotism in India or in Indonesia, in Thailand, then you will be surprised that we are far, far better off than that. Their corruption is only at a very high source. And the other thing we have to remember is, corruption even in those countries and in Sri Lanka is brought about not by a government. It is forced on the government by various multinational interests. Corruption is very high in the private sector. They are the people who corrupt, even on aid projects, to sell their aid. I know of embassies interfering, like in the supply of the Eastern Water Scheme in whole of the eastern areas during the time of the President Chandrika. There were allegations that the whole project could have been done by Sri Lankan engineers for one-third the cost or less. But it was done at a huge price with foreign, what I may call foreign government coming into the situation and went to a private bank financing. Now, things like that has happened in Sri Lanka. Things like